Hello class, welcome to our lesson today about dividing integers. Hopefully the multiplication and addition and subtraction pieces have been going okay for you. And today we're going to look at dividing. First thing to look at is kind of a warm-up of 5 different questions that I think you need to be able to understand and solve. So I'd like you to take a moment, okay, go and pause the video and go through these 5 questions. Remember to work on showing equal signs and kind of showing your steps. You also have to follow the order of operations. Now that you've paused the video, let's take a look at the answers. This first one here, I'm going to go ahead and do keep, change with this minus 25 and make it plus negative 25. I'm going to choose to add the two negative numbers up first, and then there's one negative, one positive, so 35 minus 18 is 17, and it's negative because the bigger number is negative. I think everyone would be in agreement that number 2 is a nice question because you're just multiplying two negatives and it becomes a positive 42. Keep, change on the third one. So it becomes plus 5, that just equals 19. Be careful on questions like number 4. Order of operations say multiply 2 times negative 4 first. 2 times negative 4 would be negative 8. But then notice it's 5 minus negative 8. If you keep, change, that'll be 5 plus 8 and then plus 2. And it's really all addition of, and it ends up being 15. The last question, I love this question because I get students that start multiplying 26 times 18 from time to time. Well, you're going to multiply it by 0, so that just all goes away, and it's just 9 minus 8, which is 1. This would be a good example of kind of saving time on a test. If you take 26 times 18 on a test and you spend a couple minutes doing that and multiply by 0 at that point, so it's just kind of a waste. So don't forget that you need to follow the order of operations, but you can still use the associative properties to find your answer. Okay, division. I just have one basic idea about division. So for example, negative 15, you're going to divide it into 3 equal parts. So I just drew out 15 negative integer counters, and I divided it into 3 equal parts, and each group should have 5 left over. Okay, or 5 in each group, excuse me, not 5 left over. And so the answer here would be negative 5. So you had negative 15, 15 negative counters divided into 3 equal groups. There should be 5 of those in each group. So essentially, dividing integers is the same as multiplication. So the rules are the same. Negative divided by negative will end up being a positive, for example. 1 negative divided by 1 positive or vice versa will still be a negative answer. The one that is a little different is 0. 0 divided by either a negative or positive is going to be 0. But if it's a number divided by 0, it's undefined. Now there's different ways to explain this mathematically. One way to explain it is, think about it. If you start with some money, and you want to divide it into 0 portions. That's not possible because you already have money. Okay, so you can't have something and then divide by nothing. Okay, so that's always why it's undefined. There's some other mathematical principles behind that, but remember you can't divide by 0. If you try it on a calculator, it should say an error, divide by 0 error, something like that. But a 0 on the top, you can have nothing. I'll tell you what, I'll take the whole class, I'll take all the money I have in my pocket right now and divide it evenly among the group. Well, I have no money in my pocket. I divided it evenly amongst all of you. You all get nothing. And you say, well, that's not fair. You didn't do that right. Well, I did. It's just I started with nothing. Okay, there's a difference between that and then the other option, which is divide by 0. So keep that in mind when you divide by 0. Okay, really all you got to do is divide the numbers and then know if it's positive or negative. So for example, this 32 divided by negative 8 should be a negative because there's one negative and one positive, and it's 4. 64 divided by 2 is 32, and it should be negative. Here's your undefined situation. Negative 56 divided by 0 should end up being undefined. And this negative divided by negative should be a positive. So your rules are the same. If you know them for multiplication, they should work with division. The rest of kind of what we're looking at, plugging in and solving, notice that there's a lot of pieces here in the numerator. That's kind of in its own set of parentheses, even though we didn't write it. So 5 plus negative 8, I don't need to worry about keep, change because it's already addition. 8 minus 5 is 3. Divided by a negative 3 should be a negative 1. 15 divided by y, notice I'm putting those things in parentheses like I mentioned in the previous lessons. Okay, so when you're plugging some of those in, you get negative 3. 15 divided by a negative 5 would be a negative because there's one negative and one positive. Next, it's x times y, so x times y would be 8 times a negative 5, so 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. And then divided by a negative 10 should be 4. Notice here, because there's some multiplication and division, you have to go left to right. So you got to go from the left side to the right side as you're finding that answer. On this absolute value, you can kind of ignore the absolute value until the last moment. So take take y minus 10, so y is negative 5. I made a note up here, don't forget, keep, change, change. You should change subtraction into addition. It's going to make your life a lot simpler as you keep moving through these lessons. That's negative 15. Negative 15 divided by a negative 3 should be a positive 5, not a negative 5. And don't forget that the absolute value of a positive is still positive. Okay, don't forget that as you're going through your questions. Okay, the next scenarios have some some exponents involved. Notice I just plugged all the numbers in parentheses. So x minus y, I'm just going to start change if I can. Okay, so minus a negative becomes plus a positive. I'm going to take negative 3 and square it. I can do that at the same time because they're separated by addition. So really I'm just adding 3 numbers up at the end because negative 3 times itself should be a positive and minus a negative 5 should be a plus 5. Notice on this scenario, this is negative y squared. The temptation is to say, oh, it's negative of negative 5, so the double negative becomes a positive. But since it's being raised to the second power, I must do exponents first. So negative 5 squared should be 25, and then make it negative. That's why it's negative 25 here. Squaring first, and then make it negative. And then here, I'm going to take 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24, minus a negative becomes plus a positive. And then negative and a positive subtraction, that's 1, and the bigger number is negative. Notice how systematic my approach is here. Okay, many of you aren't very systematic when you do these questions. You need to have equal signs, you need to kind of do one step, or if there's 2 steps separated by addition at the same time, you could do that. Okay, but you need to go systematically down the list. Notice every single one of these are equal to one another. A lot of you like to do like a running total, like say 5 plus 4 equals the number and then plus the next number. You want to try to avoid doing that because what you're saying is an expression equals another expression. You want to keep working on that idea as you're going through this lesson. Okay, so today is just one big assignment because division's pretty easy, so I thought you could have a little bit of time to work on that today. You're going to do 1 through 23, all of them. I normally don't put all there, but I wanted to make sure it was clear, all of those pieces. That should go fairly quick because a lot of them are just one number divided by another. 27 through 37, do the odds. And then 41 through 45 are those review questions at the end. Make sure you do all of those pieces. Please make sure you're showing your work. I know it's tempting not to show your work really, but we need to be in the habit of doing that as we're looking at these questions. So make sure that you're showing your work on each scenario. Have a good day, everybody.